Okay, everyone. I know I said I was going to record this second part last night right after I got a drink. Well, I was a bit tired and I wanted to see if I could actually get this because I'm using a recording app on my phone now, not the camera. Yeah. So, everyone, I'm just walking around. Why is that light on? It is like 10 a.m. almost. We're 3 minutes from 10 a.m. Stupid creaky doors. Anyway, let's get on with this. I'm gonna turn this up because I'm gonna be far away from the computer. And I have to find that page I was on. I know exactly where we left off too, which is surprising because usually when I go to sleep, I forget most of what happened the day before. I have a bad memory, guys. Bear with me on that. I was passing it. Where is it? Come on. Okay, here it is. Again, I am losing my voice, but guys, do not, I know you're probably gonna be like, what are you talking about in chapter 4 and 5 part 1, and just ignore the nonsense about me not being able to, just ignore that nonsense about me not being able to put out my reaction videos because I found my video editor on my account because I don't have the password, but I found the video editor. It was hidden. It was hidden. And then I did something that I didn't do before. And so now I found my video editor, so we're all good. But my drawing videos, they will not have a clip of Artistic Senses except for in the thumbnail. The thumbnail will be a picture of Artistic Senses, basically to the right of a bordered picture of what is going to be drawn. And yes, I will always do a rough sketch of the character I'm drawing so you guys can get an idea. Well, sort of get an idea. And also, so drawing videos will be done in Windows Live Movie Maker, and the other videos, which are my reading videos and my reaction videos, which I still gotta do a reaction to at least season, well, the pilot episodes, because yeah, I'm gonna be doing that. What else is there to tell you guys? So don't mind that that was a short bump in the road. I thought it was gonna be longer, honestly, guys. But let's get on with this super long chapter. So we left with Jason Clary going into the library. Clary's going into the library at the Institute for the first time. Let's see how she reacts. And what the mysterious Hodge says. So, let's go. The library was circular, with a ceiling that tapered to a point, as if it had been built inside a tower. The walls were lined with books, the shelves so high that tall ladders set on casters were placed along them in along them at intervals. Yeah. These were no ordinary books. Okay, my vision just blurred for a moment there. I don't know why that happens, but it does. It happens to me a lot. What's going on with this? Anyways, these were no ordinary books either. These were books bound in leather and velvet, clasped with sturdy-looking locks and hinges made of brass and silver. Their spines were set with dully glowing jewels and illuminated with gold script. They looked worn in a way that made it clear that these books were not just old, but were well used and had been loved. The floor was polished wood inlaid with chips of glass and marble and bits of semi-precious stone. The inlay formed a pattern that Clary couldn't quite decipher. It might have been the constellations or even a map of the world. She suspected she'd have to climb up into the tower and look down in order to see it properly. In the center of the room sat a magnificent desk. It was carved from a single slab of wood, a great heavy piece of oak that gleamed with dull shine of years. With the dull shine of years, guys, I can't talk, it's morning, and I only had like 5 hours of sleep. I went to bed at like 3 a.m. because I was reading in Clockwork Angel. I'm almost done the book now, that book, and I was just so hooked, and I couldn't put my phone down because it's a digital copy that someone, his name is Steam Master on Running got me the free digital copy, and so now I'm just like hooked. I'm hooked. You get hooked in these books. It's amazing. On the box, when I bought the first 5 books all at once, which is how I was able to read them so fast, it actually said that this book series is almost like Twilight, except it's like Twilight on steroids, and it's better. It's better than Twilight. There's no shining vampires, or just, yeah. So, let me get back to the book. Okay, let me just start from this paragraph. The floor was polished wood inlaid with chips of glass and marble and bits of semi-precious stone. The inlay formed a pattern that Claire couldn't quite decipher. It might have been the constellations or even a map of the world. She suspected she'd have to climb up into the tower and look down in order to see it properly. In the center of the room sat a magnificent desk. It was carved from a single slab of wood, a great heavy piece of oak that gleamed with the dull shine of years. The slab rested upon the backs of 2 angels, carved from marble, their wings gilded and their faces engraved with a look of suffering. As if the weight of the table, the slab, were breaking their backs, behind the desk sat a thin man with gray streaked hair and a long beaky nose. "A book lover, I see," he said, smiling at Clary. "You didn't tell me that, Jace." Jace chuckled. Clary could tell that he had come up behind her and was standing there with his hands in his pockets, grinning that infuriating grin of his. "We haven't done much talking during our short acquaintance," he said. "I'm afraid our reading habits didn't come up." Clary turned around and shot him a glare. "How can you tell," she asked the man behind the desk, "that I like books, I mean?" "The look on your face when you walked in," he said, standing up and coming around from the desk. "Somehow I doubted you were that impressed by me." Clary stifled a gasp as he rose. For a moment it seemed to her that he was strangely misshapen. His left shoulder humped and higher than the other. As he approached, she saw that the hunch was actually a bird, perched neatly on his shoulder, a glossy feathered creature with bright black eyes. "This is Hugo," the man said, touching the bird on his shoulder. Hugo is a raven, and as such he knows many things. I, meanwhile, am Hodge Starkweather, a professor of history, and as such I do not know nearly enough. Oh well, Hodge, you know enough. You know a lot. Clary laughed a little despite herself and shook his outstretched hand. Oh my god, I'm screwing up so much already. Oh well. Sometimes the screw-ups are the best part because this book series can make you feel like you're in this world, and then my screw-ups just bring you back. Because I can be doing so well and then I just screw up and you're just like, okay. Because I do that even when I'm reading in my head. I sometimes screw up while I'm reading in my head. Also, I will spot out some problems in these sentences, and because they wouldn't make sense to me, so I reword them myself so they make more sense. There are only a few of those errors. I think there's one of them in City of Ashes, which is the next book, by the way, so don't worry. But we're still far from that book, because we're only on page 67 out of over 400. Over 450. So, yeah. Let's get on with this anyway, so. Clary laughed a little despite herself and shook his outstretched hand. Clary Frey. "Honored to make your acquaintance," he said. "I would be honored to make the acquaintance of anyone who could kill a ravener with her bare hands." It wasn't my bare hands. It still felt odd to be congratulated for killing something. Yeah, that would be odd. Especially when you think you're just a normal girl, a normal person, and then you find out that there's demons and angels and all this other fun stuff. It was Jace's, well, I don't remember what it was called, but she means my censer, Jace said. She shoved it down the thing's throat. The ruins must have choked it. I guess I'll need another one, he added, almost as an afterthought. I should have mentioned that. There are several extra in the weapons room, said Hodge. When he smiled at Clary, 1,000 small lines rayed out from around his eyes, like the cracks in an old painting. That was quick thinking. What gave you the idea of using the censer as a weapon? Before she could reply, a sharp laugh sounded through the room. Clary had been so enraptured by the books and distracted by Hodge that she hadn't seen Alec sprawled in an overstuffed red armchair by the empty fireplace. I can't believe you buy that story, Hodge, he said. At first, Claire didn't even register his words. She was too busy staring at him. Like many only children, she was fascinated by the resemblance between siblings. And now in the full day of light, she could see exactly how much Alec looked like his sister. They had the same jet black hair, same slender eyebrows winging up at the corners, the same pale, high-colored skin, but where Isabel was all arrogance, Alec slumped down in the chair as if he hoped nobody would notice him. His lashes were long and dark like Isabel's, but where her eyes were black, his were the dark blue of bottle glass. They gazed at Clary with a hostility as pure and concentrated as acid. I'm not quite sure what you mean, Alec. Hodge raised an eyebrow. Clary wondered how old he was. There was a sort of agelessness to him. Despite the gray in his hair, he wore a neat gray tweed suit, perfectly pressed. He would have looked like a kindly college professor if it hadn't been for the thick scar that drew up the right side of his face. She wondered how he had gotten it. Are you suggesting that she didn't kill that demon after all? Of course she didn't. Look at her. She's a Mundy, Hodge, and a little kid at that. There's no way she took on a Ravener. I'm not a little kid, Clary interrupted. I'm 16 years old. Well, I will be on Sunday. The same age as Isabel, Hodge said. Would you call her a child? Isabel hails from one of the greatest Shadowhunter dynasties in history, Alex said dryly. This girl, on the other hand, hails from New Jersey. I'm from Brooklyn, Clary was outraged. And so what? I just killed a demon in my own house, and you're going to be a dickhead about it because I'm not some spoiled, rotten, rich brat like you and your sister? Okay, I have to laugh at that. It's just... Clary basically says this to someone who could possibly kill her. To someone who can kill her, actually. She says that. She's very, brave. Whereas me, on the other hand, I would have just been like... I would have just stood there. And I would have just been like... Shut up in my head. I'd be like, shut up, please. Please. I don't need this. Alec looked astonished. What did you call me? Jace laughed. She has a point, Alec, Jace said. It's those bridge and tunnel demons you really have to watch out for. Okay, as you can tell, Jace is always joking, and when I read the Infernal Devices, you will notice it seems to run in his family, his bloodlines. It's not funny, Jace, Alec interrupted, starting to his feet. Are you just going to let her stand there and call me names? Yes, Jace said kindly. It'll do you good. Try to think of it as endurance training. We may be there about I already am screwing up. We may be Parabatai, Alex said tightly, but your flippancy is wearing on my patience. And your obstinacy is wearing on mine. When I found her, she was lying on the floor in a pool of blood with a dying demon practically on top of her. I watched as it vanished. If she didn't kill it, who did? Raveners are stupid. Maybe it got itself in the neck when its stinger. Well, with its stinger. It's happened before. Now you're suggesting it committed suicide? Yeah, that is kind of... Alex's mouth tightened. It isn't right for her to be here. Mondays aren't allowed in the Institute, and there are good reasons for that. If anyone knew about this, we could be reported to the Clave. That's not entirely true, Hodge said. The law does allow us to offer sanctuary to mundanes in certain circumstances. A Ravener has already attacked Clary's mother. She could well have been next. Attacked. Clary wondered if this was a euphemism for murdered. The raven on Hodge's shoulder cawed softly. Raveners are search and destroy machines, Alex said. They act under orders from warlocks or powerful demon lords. Now, what interest would a warlock or demon lord have in an ordinary mundane household? His eyes, when he looked at Clary, were bright with dislike. Any thoughts? Clary said. Any thoughts? And then sometimes it's confusing because I put Clary said before what she says, so this is one of those moments, guys. Clary said it must have been a mistake. Yeah. Demons don't make those kinds of mistakes. If they went after your mother, there must have been a reason. If she were innocent... What do you mean, innocent? Clary's voice was quiet. Alec looked taken aback. What he means, said Hodge, is that it is extremely unusual for a powerful demon, the kind who might command a host of lesser demons, to interest himself in the affairs of human beings. No mundane may safely summon a demon. They lack that power. But there have been some, desperate and foolish, who have found a warlock to do it for them. My mother doesn't know any warlock. She doesn't believe in magic, a thought occurred to Clary. Madame Dorothea, she lives downstairs. She's a witch. Maybe the demons were after her and got my mom by mistake. Hodge's eyebrows shot up in his hair. A witch lives downstairs from you? She's like most witches, a fake, Jace said. I already looked into it. There's no reason for any warlock to be interested in her, unless he's in the market for non-functional crystal balls. He turned to Clary. Warlocks are born magic users. Witches are humans who've taught themselves a little magic, but very few are the real thing. And we're back where we began. Hodge reached up to stroke the bird on his shoulder. It seems the time has come to notify the Clave. No, Jace said. We can't. It made sense to keep Clary's presence here a secret, while we were not sure she would recover, Hodge said. But now she has, and she is the first mundane to pass through the doors of the Institute in over 100 years. You know the rules about mundane knowledge of shadow hunters, Jace. The Clave must be informed. Absolutely, Alec agreed. I could get a message to my father. She's not a mundane, Jace said quietly. Hodge's eyebrows shot back up to his hairline and stayed there. Alec, caught in the middle of a sentence, choked with surprise. In the sudden silence, Clary could hear the sound of Hugo's wings rustling. But I am, she said. No, Jace said. Jace. My God. No, said Jace. You aren't. He turned to Hodge, and Clary saw the slight movement of his throat as he swallowed. Clary found this glimpse of his nervousness oddly reassuring. That night, there were... Okay. Sorry if I pronounced this wrong. Okay. Ducian demons dressed like police officers. We had to get past them. Clary was too weak to run, and there was no time to hide. She would have died. So I used my steel, put a Mendelin rune on the inside of her arm. I thought, are you out of your mind? Hodge slammed his hand down on top of the desk so hard that Clary thought the wood might crack. You know what the law says about placing marks on mundanes? You of all people ought to know better. But it works, said Jace. Clary, show them your arm. With a baffled glance in Jace's direction, she held out her bare arm. She remembered looking down at it that night in the alley, thinking how vulnerable it seemed. Now just below the crease of her wrist, she could see 3 faint overlapping circles. The lines as faint as the memory of a scar that had faded with the passage of years. See, it's almost gone, Jay said. It didn't hurt her at all. That's not the point, Hodge could barely control his anger. You could have turned her into a Forsaken. 2 bright spots of color burned high on Alec's cheekbones. I can't believe you, Jace. Only shadow hunters can receive marks from the Grey Book. They kill mundanes. Ugh. I didn't finish that word before I stuttered. They kill mundanes. She's not a mundane. Haven't you been listening? It explains why she could see us. She must have Clave blood. Clary lowered her arm, feeling suddenly cold. But I don't. I couldn't. You must, Jace said without looking at her. If you didn't, that mark me. Oh, God, this chair. Okay, that was odd. This chair just, did something. This chair is like a rocking chair, but it scares me sometimes, guys. You must, Jace said without looking at her. If you didn't, that mark I made on your arm, that's enough, Jace, said Hodge, with displeasure clear in his voice. There's no need to frighten her further. But I was right, wasn't I? It explains what happened to her mother, too. If she was a shadow hunter in exile, she might well have downworld enemies. My mother wasn't a shadow hunter. Your father, then, Jace said. What about him? Clary returned his gaze with a flat stare. He died before I was born. Jace flinched almost imperceptibly. It was Alec who spoke. It's possible, he said uncertainly. If her father were a shadow hunter and her mother a mundane. Well, we all know it's against the law to marry a Mundi. Maybe they were in hiding. My mother would have told me, Clary said, although she thought of the lack of more than one photo of her father, the way her mother never spoke of him, and knew that it wasn't true. Not necessarily, said Jace. We all have secrets. Luke, Clary said, our friend, he would know. With the thought of Luke came a flash of guilt and horror. It's been 3 days. He must be frantic. Can I call him? Is there a phone? She turned to Jace. Please? Jace hesitated before looking at Hodge, who nodded and moved aside from the desk. Behind him was a globe, made of beaten brass that didn't quite look like other globes. It didn't quite look like other globes she had seen. There was something subtly strange about the shape of the countries and continents. Next to the globe was an old-fashioned black telephone with a silver rotary dial. Man, that's old. Clary lifted it to her ear, the familiar dial tone washing over her like soothing water. Luke picked up on the third ring. Hello? Luke, she sagged against the desk. It's me. It's Clary. Clary, she could hear the relief in his voice, along with something else she couldn't quite identify. You're all right? I'm fine, she said. I'm sorry I didn't call you before, Luke. Luke, my mom. I know, the police were here. Then you haven't heard from her? Any vestigial hope that her mother had fled the house and hidden somewhere disappeared. There was no way she wouldn't have contacted Luke. Oh no, not this. Okay, back here. There was no way she wouldn't have contacted Luke. What did the police say? Just that she was missing. Clary thought of the policewoman with her skeletal hand and shivered. Where are you? I'm in the city, Clary. Okay, yeah. Where are you? I'm in the city, Clary said. I don't know where exactly. With some friends. My wallet's gone, though. If you've got some cash, I could take a cab to your place. No, he said shortly. The phone slipped in her sweaty hand. She caught it. What? No, he said. It's too dangerous. You can't come here. We can call... Look, his voice was hard. Whatever your mother's gotten herself mixed up in, it's nothing to do with me. You're better off where you are. But I don't want to stay here, she heard the whine in her voice, like a child's. I don't know these people. I'm not your father, Clary. I've told you that before. Tears burned the backs of her eyes. I'm sorry, it's just... Don't call me for favors again, he said. I've got my own problems. I don't need to be bothered with yours, he added, and hung up the phone. Yeah. I could have ended part 1 there, probably, because we still have quite a bit to go. We're only on page 74, but then this, I would make this part seem quite short. What? Oh, we're at like 30 minutes and 17 seconds now. So yeah, this is really, but then this part would be short, really short, actually. I would have had to read for a longer time. So yeah, it doesn't sound like Luke's too impressed. It doesn't look like Luke's too impressed, and you'll find out why later. I'm not going to spoil you on that. I already spoiled enough for you on part 1, so yeah. Let's, I guess, get on with this. She stood and stared at the receiver, the dial tone buzzing. The dial tone buzzing in her ears. Like a bug. No, what? Oh, I said that wrong. Let me restart this sentence. She stood and stared at the receiver, the dial tone buzzing in her ear like a big, ugly wasp. She dialed Luke's number again, waited. This time it went to voicemail. She banged the phone shut. She banged the phone down, her hands trembling. Jace was leaning against the armrest of Alex's chair, watching her. I take it he wasn't happy to hear from you. Clary's heart felt as if it had shrunk down to the size of a walnut, a tiny, hard stone in her chest. I will not cry, she thought, not in front of these people. I think I'd like to have a talk with Clary, said Hodge. Alone, he added firmly, seeing Jace's expression. Alex stood up. Fine, we'll leave you to it. That's hardly fair, Jace objected. I'm the one who found her. I'm the one who saved her life. You want me here, don't you? He appealed, turning to Clary. Jace, not the best time. Clary looked away, knowing that if she opened her mouth, she'd start to cry. As if from a distance she heard Alec laugh. Not everyone wants you all the time, Jay, he said. Don't be ridiculous, she heard Jay said, but he sounded disappointed. Fine then, we'll be in the weapons room. Yeah, the weapons room. The door closed behind them with a definitive click. Clary's eyes were stinging the way they did when she tried to hold tears back for too long. Hodge loomed up in front of her, a fussing gray blur. Sit down, he said. Here, on the couch. The whole, eyes stinging from holding back tears. I do that too often, and so it would take a lot for the tears to start streaming down my face. They would only start streaming down my face if, it's like the anniversary of a tragic thing, like on July 8th, which was the day after my birthday. Oh, guys, I tell you something? Today's my mom's birthday, so I'm recording this until she gets home, because we're going to be watching Jurassic World. On my birthday, we saw, because mine's before hers, not that much before. She was like, this child's not being born on my birthday. Family was betting on that. They were betting I was going to be born on her birthday, which I wasn't. I was born about a week or two early. So, yeah. But anyways, what I had to talk to. So, on my birthday we saw San Andreas. But I'm recording this, and I will try to upload it quickly today, chapter 4 and chapter 5. I might have time to record chapter 6, but I don't know, because I gotta eat too. How long is chapter 6? Oh no. Is chapter 6 another long one? Are we just gonna have these long chapters now? Well, it only goes from page 82 to 99. So, yeah, it's not that long. Compared to this chapter, at least. So, let's get back to this. She sank gratefully. I already can't talk. Oh, okay. My voice. Okay, now the scissor's not working. She sank down No, there is no down there. Why did I think there was a down? I'm odd. Guys, I haven't read this book for a few months, so bear with me, because I lost it and then I found it when we were moving. I found it when we opened a box. It was packed the whole time. The whole time. And I was missing the book. I feel so bad to do that. I was missing the book for so long. Let's get to this. She sank gratefully onto the soft cushions. Her cheeks were wet. She reached up to brush the tears away, blinking. I don't cry much usually, she found herself saying. It doesn't mean anything. I'll be all right in a minute. Most people don't cry when they're upset or frightened, but rather when they're frustrated. Your frustration is understandable. You've been through a most trying time. Trying? Clary wiped her eyes on the hem of Isabel's shirt. You could say that. Guys, I'll be back in a quick sec. Just 1 sec. Okay, guys, I'm back. I've been recording for a while, and I am apologizing. I'm recording this in the mornings like usual, and I'm away from the computer. So yeah, this is going to be great. Oh crap, I forgot to press play again on the, you can't hear music like you should. Hold on. Yes, there we go. Okay, I'm gonna sit in the other chair. The other chair, because it's more comfy. In a way, it's more comfy. If only my mom didn't have all these wrappers around. Because it's her chair. I don't have a chair in this living room. My brother has a chair and he's rarely down here. My mom has a chair. I don't have a chair. Does that make any sense, guys? Does it? I don't think so. Okay, this chair's not comfy. And it doesn't make me scared shitless to sit in. So we are further away from the computer, so yeah, so let's get on with this. Hodge pulled the chair out from behind the desk, dragging it over so that he could sit facing her. His eyes, she saw, were gray, like his hair and tweed coat, but there was kindness in them. Is there anything I could get for you? He asked. Something to drink? Some tea? I don't want tea, said Clary with muffled force. I want to find my mother, and then I want to find out who took her in the first place, and I want to kill them. Unfortunately, said Hodge, we are all out of bitter revenge at the moment, so it's either tea or nothing. Harry dropped the hem of his shirt, now spotted all over with wet blotches, and said, What am I supposed to do then? You could start by telling me a little about what happened. Hodge said, rummaging in his pocket. He produced a handkerchief crisply folded and handed it to her. She took it with silent astonishment. She'd never before known anyone who carried a handkerchief. Well, Hodge is old. Let's just say that. He's not really that old, but shadow hunters are just like these old-fashioned people. You'll understand that as we read, but they're like old-fashioned. The demon you saw in your apartment, was that the first such creature you'd ever seen? You had no inkling such creatures existed before? Clary shook her head, then paused. One before, but I didn't realize what it was. First time I saw Jace. Right, of course. How foolish of me to forget. Hodge nodded in pandemonium. That was the first time? Yes. And your mother never mentioned them to you? Nothing about another world, perhaps, that most people cannot see? Did she seem particularly interested in myths, fairy tales, legends of the fantastic? No, she hated all that stuff. She even hated Disney movies. Now, how can you hate Disney movies, though? She just doesn't want Claire to believe in those stories, I know. It's understandable, but still. How? Now, this is going to be a longer part than part 1. So, guys, bear with me. She even hated Disney movies. She didn't like me reading manga. She said it was childish. Just like my ponies. My mom and brother think that's childish. And they're really the only ones in my family that know. My grandparents are my dad's side. My grandparents for my dad, his parents are gonna die soon. I know that. They are very old. They are surprisingly old, and they smoke. I'm surprised none of them got lung cancer. And they're both in their 70s or 80s, I don't know. But they smoke constantly. And I'm like, how are you still not unhealthy, really, aside from my grandma not being able to gain weight at all? Whereas I have problems losing weight because I don't eat enough. Yeah, so anyways, let's get back to this, shall we? Hodge scratched his head. His hair didn't move. Most peculiar, he murmured. Sorry, guys. Not really, said Clary. My mother wasn't peculiar. She was the most normal person in the world. Normal people don't generally find their homes ransacked by demons, Hodge said, not unkindly. Now this series does this, not unkindly, which means I'm pretty sure I've dissected this. These two words, I dissected them, and I'm just like, okay, so if and it's not kindly, so kindly. So when this book says not unkindly, it really means kindly, and I'm just, and like, did you really need to do that? Did you really need to put the extra word in there and put the un there? It can be confusing when you first read it. But anywho, couldn't it have been a mistake? If it had been a mistake, Hodge said, and you were an ordinary girl, you would not have seen the demon that attacked you. Or if you had, your mind would have processed it as something else entirely. A vicious dog. even another human being. That you could see it, that it spoke to you. How did you know it spoke to me? Jace reported that you said it talked. Clary shivered, remembering. It talked about wanting to eat me, but I think it wasn't supposed to. Raveners are generally under the control of a stronger demon. They're not very bright or capable on their own, explained Hodge. Did it say what its master was looking for? Clary thought. It said something about a valentine, but Hodge jerked upright so abruptly that Hugo, who had been resting comfortably on his shoulder, launched himself into the air with an irritable caw. Valentine? Yes, Clary said. I heard the same name Pandemonium from the boy. The demon. Its name we all know, Hodge said shortly. His voice was steady, but she could see a slight tremble in his hands. Hugo, back on his shoulder, ruffed his feathers uneasily. A demon? No, Valentine was a shadow hunter. A shadow hunter? Why do you say it was? Because he's dead, said Hodge flatly. He's been dead for 16 years. Clary sank back against the couch cushions. Her head was throbbing. Maybe she should have gone for that tea after all. Okay. Could it be someone else? Someone with the same name? Hodge's laugh was a humorous bark. No, but it could have been someone using his name to send a message. Stood up and paced to his desk, hands locked behind his back. And this would be the time to do it. Why now? Because of the accords. The peace negotiations? Jace mentioned those. Peace with who? Downworlders, Hodge murmured. He looked down at Clary's mouth was a tight line. Forgive me, he said. This must be confusing for you. You think? It says you think, but for me, I do say y'all and yeah, and I hope y'all enjoyed this, yada yada yada, that stuff. That's because I have Western blood, so y'all is just like, hey y'all. I do that to my friends sometimes. And then with a you, it can sometimes be like, yeah, think. So, I do have Western blood, just so you guys know. Like Texan, well, whatever. I have a lot of different cultures' blood. Russia, Ukraine, England, Canadian, Mexico. Yeah, I just have a lot of blood. Yeah, I'm pale as shit. I'm pale. I'm just really pale. I'm surprised that I tan, even. It's really actually a big change from the rest of my skin. But anyways, my arms are darker. I write mostly. But anyways, let's get on with the book, shall we? You think? He leaned against the desk, stroking Hugo's feathers absently. Downworlders are those who share the shadow world with us. We have always lived in uneasy peace with them, like vampires, werewolves, and the fair folk. Hodge said fairies and Lilith's children, being half demon, are warlocks. They all have demon in them. Downworlders all have demon in them. Because werewolves and vampires are basically a demon disease, basically. It's what they call it in the books. And so they're diseased. Fair folk are the offspring of angels and demons. And then warlocks are the offspring of human and demon. So, yeah. They all are part demon. So what are shadow hunters? We are sometimes called the Nephilim, said Hodge. I like the word Nephilim. It's easy to say and it's nice to say. In the Bible, they were the offspring of humans and angels. The legend of the origin of shadow hunters is that they were created more than 1,000 years ago, when human beings were overrun by demon invasions from other worlds. Jonathan Shadowhunter, the first of the Nephilim, summoned the angel Raziel, who mixed some of his blood with the blood of men in a cup, and gave it to those men to drink. Those who drank the angel's blood became shadow hunters, as did their children and their children's children. Children's children! Yeah. The cup thereafter was known as the Mortal Cup. Though the legend may not be fact, what is true is that through the years, when shadow hunter ranks were depleted, it was always possible to create more shadow hunters using the cup. Was always possible? The cup is gone, said Hodge, destroyed by Valentine. Just before he died, he set a great fire and burned himself to death along with his family, his wife, and his child. Scorched the land black. No one will build there still. They say the land is cursed. Is it? Possibly. The council that is the voting body of the Clave, those shadow hunters who make final decisions of policy and law, hands down curses on occasion as punishment for breaking. Okay, hold on. Possibly. The council that is the voting body of the Clave, those shadow hunters who make the final decisions of policy and law, hands down curses on occasion as punishment for breaking the law. Hint, hint. Valentine broke the greatest law of all. He took up arms against his fellow shadow hunters and slew them. He and his group, the Circle, killed dozens of their brethren, along with hundreds of downworlders during the last Accords. They were only barely defeated. Why would he want to turn on other shadow hunters? He didn't approve of the Accords. He despised downworlders and felt that they should be slaughtered wholesale to keep this world pure for human beings. Though the downworlders are not demons, not invaders, he felt they were demonic in nature, and that was enough. The Clave did not agree. They felt the assistance of downworlders was necessary if we were ever to drive off demonkind for good. And who could argue with, really, that the fair folk do not belong in this world when they have been here longer than we have? Did the Accords get signed? Yes, they were signed. When the downworlders saw the Clave turn on Valentine and his Circle in their defense, they realized shadow hunters were not their enemies. Ironically, with his insurrection, Valentine made the continuation of the Accords possible. Hodge sat down in the chair again. I apologize. This must be a dull history lesson for you. This was Valentine. Well, that was Valentine. A firebrand, a visionary, a man of great personal charm and conviction, and a killer. Now someone is invoking his name. But who? Clary asked. And what does my mother have to do with it? Hodge stood up again. I don't know, but I shall do what I can to find out. I will send messages to the Clave and also to the Silent Brothers. They may wish to speak with you. Clary didn't ask who the Silent Brothers were. She was tired of asking questions whose answers only made her more confused. She stood up. Is there any chance I could go home? Hodge looked concerned. No, I wouldn't think that would be wise. There are things I need there, even if I'm going to stay here. Clothes. We can give you money to purchase new clothes. Please, Clary said. I have to see what's left. Hodge hesitated, then offered a short inverted nod. If Jace agrees to it, you may both go. He turned to the desk, rummaging among the papers. He glanced over his shoulder as if realizing she was still there. He's in the weapons room. I don't know where that is yet, Hodge. She doesn't know her way around. Hodge smiled crookedly. Church will take you. She glanced toward the door where the fat blue Persian was curled up like a small ottoman. He rose as she came forward, fur rippling like... Okay. We're almost done here, so let's try and get through this. Fur rippling like liquid. With an imperious meow, he led her into the hall. When she looked back over her shoulder, she saw Hodge scribbling on a piece of paper, sending a message to the mysterious Clave, she guessed. Like very nice people, she wondered what their response would be. Basically, the Clave is all of Shadowhunters. And we're almost done. Basically, it's not even a page's worth. So, let's hope. Let's see if I can get through the rest of this without messing up. The red ink looked like blood against the white paper. Frowning, Hodge Starkweather rolled the... And I'm already messing up, so we can't hope for that. Hodge Starkweather rolled the letter carefully and meticulously into the shape of a tube, and he whistled for Hugo. The bird, cawing softly, settled on his wrist. Hodge winced. Years ago in the uprising, he had sustained a wound to that shoulder, and even as light... Okay, hold on. And even as light as a weight as Hugo's, or the turn of a season. A change in temperature or humidity, too sudden a movement of his arm, awakened old twinges and the memories of pains better forgotten. There were some memories, though, that never faded. Images burst like flashbulbs. Closed his eyes, blood and bodies trampled earth, a white podium stained with red, the cries of the dying, the green and rolling fields of Idris, and its endless blue sky pierced, urged. The pain of loss surged up inside him like a wave. He tightened his fists, and Hugo, wings fluttering, pecked angrily at his fingers, drawing blood. He circled his head as he flew up to the skylight and then vanished. Shaking off his sense of foreboding, Hodge reached for another piece of paper, not noticing the scarlet drops that smeared the paper as he wrote. And that is chapter 5, everyone. Reasons why I split this into 2 parts. This part's like an hour long, the other was like an hour and a half. Okay. Let's go back to the computer. So this is basically an hour and a half chapter reading. And that's because well, it's mainly because of what goes on in this. In that chapter, that's basically it's basically Clary waking up, and then she finds out about the whole basically shadow world, but not all of it. We only got a little bit of it. You learn more throughout the books. For those of you who have not seen this, I will just keep playing it and turn it down. So, yeah, series is amazing. This is already at an hour. So, I will end this here. And, okay, we're almost done with the whole rendering process. Almost done. Chapter 4 is rendering, and then I will be uploading it and editing and rendering Chapter 5 Part 1. And Part 2, which is this, will be coming right after that. So look for those. And maybe I'll have a chapter if depends on if I have the time. And it is 11. Depends on if my brother does not bother me. So I don't think another chapter will be this long, but if it is, I won't split into 2 parts because I just don't want to do that. I might just link part 1 and part 2 of chapter 5 together. So yeah. Bye. I'll see you all in the next one. I might just be recording I might just record my reaction to episode 1 of the pilot episodes of MLP. We'll see what the next video is. Either reaction, reading, or drawing video. Well, goodbye everyone. See y'all next one.